All right. Good evening. Welcome back to First and Mad right here at Mad Maddie's on 8100 West Sahara. I'm Brad Michaels, joined again with Jay Vegas, and of course, everybody's favorite, Floody. How you guys doing today? Good. We are going to talk about some football. You know, it was really interesting as this past week, we saw some interesting games. I think we saw some surprises, obviously. Out of we were talking before the show about the two biggest surprises. I think that's Cleveland, but Philadelphia. I mean, talk about a collapse.
That was an ugly big victory. And, you know, talked earlier and said, discussed that they were 6 going into this, and they won 7 out of the playoffs, and they look like crap.
After that 10-1 start.
Yeah, I mean, they were the hottest team in the league. Everybody picked them as a favorite. And, you know, and it was funny because everybody said they didn't look right, even when they were 10
and they were winning, right?
And then
same
when
with the Chiefs didn't look right.
Yeah, and then when the wheels kind of fell off and went on that losing streak, I think they just kind of acted in. It just felt like they were just done.
But you said that the players and everybody's supporting the coach, so maybe it was the coach.
Well, I'm thinking it is
another
that particular coach, Matt Patricia, probably is the cancer in that locker room. So let's go back though. Let's start with the early game on Saturday. That was Cleveland at Houston in a game that wasn't even a game.
That wasn't a game.
It was over at halftime.
I thought going in there that Cleveland had the best and healthiest defense going in. I thought they'd have something for the young kid Stroud to make him look foolish and whatnot. And I got to eat my own words on that because Stroud looked excellent. The team looked excellent. They played great defense. The double pickoffs for back-to-back sixes. You know, Joe, nice try, but, you know, better go back to packing groceries.
Well, for a minute, I thought it was Ryan Fitzpatrick was playing for the you know.
He played for your team. Did he play for your team?
He
played for a lot of teams, but wasn't the Patriots.
He played for a lot of teams.
At one point, I think Ryan Fitzpatrick played for 34 out of the 32 teams.
It's a nice list. He's got a long list.
Was it 13 or 14 teams?
Yeah. I know he never made it in New England, but he did make it in Miami.
Yeah, he was in Miami for a while. He was never in the Niners.
Okay.
He did good in Miami. You know, I remember when he first came out with Buffalo. Yeah. And everybody thought he was going to be the Buffalo quarterback for a long time. And then, of course, Fitztragic hits.
Yeah. Well, I liked him. He's a smart guy. He went to Harvard and everything else, you know?
Great. I mean, he's a good solid backup. He was always a good solid backup.
True, and he's a character. And with that Grizzly Adams beard.
Oh, you got to. I bet he was a great locker room guy.
Oh, yeah. I bet he was.
He was, from what I understand from the Dolphin players, he was the locker room favorite. And a practical joker too. So, but we all took a digger on that Cleveland game. We all picked Cleveland, and I'll update the records for last week. Jesse and I both 4-2 on our picks, mainly because we picked Tampa.
Yeah, that's
because you picked Green Bay. It was one of your surprising picks. And Floody came in at 3-3. Now I'm telling you what, 50%. It's not bad.
I did cash a ticket.
There you
little
go.
Teaser action works. Goes a long way.
Of course, we'll get into all of the games this week. We'll go ahead and we'll throw up the ticker with the recaps as we go through the rest of these games from last week. The Ice Bowl in Kansas City.
The chili game on the NBC Peacock that some people watched. I did not watch.
I have to admit.
We got lucky. We had it. I was working over at another place, and we had one TV, 70-inch TV with like 30 people around it because we couldn't get the volume in throughout the house either. So one TV has it on, and see it all. But it was great camaraderie. Everybody's was nice because it was Chief fans and Dolphin fans were there for about 5 minutes, and then Dolphin fans all went to the bathroom and then just kept going, flushing that.
Because the Dolphins were on ice, so our fans had to be put on ice.
They were.
I have to admit, I wasn't going to do it just because of the principle of it. I didn't want to have to pay for a game to be streamed when we're used to watching these games all the time. Okay. I broke down because I was at home. So I decided, okay, I'll pay the $5.99. I'll watch this game. I wish I hadn't. And I canceled my subscription.
This is Dolphin.
The Dolphin.
I would have paid a dime for it. I don't care if it was the Patriots in the Super Bowl. I think Peacock's such a rip-off deal and everything else. And I think the NFL might one in the butt a little
They
bit.
might want to rethink that.
Yeah,
one.
I know the NFL made a bunch of money because NBC paid up the wazoo for that.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
like $200 million
okay.
to
It
stream
was
that.
ridiculous.
And guess what? Next year, folks, it's on
Yeah.
every week.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
$6 and 23 million people tuned in. So you know.
You had a couple of the fish on the
Yeah.
line, dog fans.
But
It was
yeah,
ugly. It was ugly.
It was
You
ugly.
knew it.
It was 16-9
Yeah.
at halftime. Wasn't too bad, but you knew the Dolphins. We didn't have anything. We were bringing guys in off of the street. You know, Melvin Ingram, he hadn't played all year.
Oh, yeah,
we were bringing him in.
Two a year were killing me because I had over 38 and a half. I couldn't get out of those two teams.
No.
And the teaser, that was awful.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
Yeah.
I just
Tua
thought,
looked awful.
the
whole-
injuries finally caught up to Miami, and
the cold didn't
the
help.
lack of a running game in that cold weather, the
Yeah.
offensive line injuries and the woes.
Tua's bell rung again or something. He didn't. It was ugly.
Yeah, it was,
Well, he
it was
just
bad.
doesn't play well when he's got a rush in his face. And he can't go to his first guy. He has no time to go to his second or third reads. Somebody today, it was Adam Beasley, who actually used to be a beat reporter for the Miami Herald. And he's talking about, well, I think it's time that the Dolphins get rid of one, either Hill or a Waddle, because when they're on the field at the same time, Waddle's production goes down. I'm like, yeah, because he's WR2, not one.
Yeah.
And Tyreek's probably the first read.
Yeah.
So that would, and I made a comment to somebody else, and I'll ask you guys your opinion of this. Trading one of those guys, right, and getting rid of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle would be the equivalent to me. The Dolphins going, we're going to get rid of the Marks brothers. We're going to get rid of either Duper or Clayton. I mean,
that one doesn't make sense because that whole offense is built around that passing game and the speed that comes with it. That's
and the
what
speed at running back too. Mostert and
all that
Achane.
speed. That's their strength. And cutting one of those two guys, I don't think is a smart move, especially with Hill. Hill's already made this statement that he only plans on playing a few more years
through his contract right now. I think he's got 3 or 4 more years.
Yeah,
and
so
then he's going to
he's-
retire.
Yeah, he said that he'll never sign another contract. So you got to keep a guy like Waddle around. Listen, the injuries they stun everybody. So getting rid of good players, I don't think is ever a good idea.
Dolphins do have salary cap issues. They're $44 million over the cap, and the effective cap to sign free agents in your draft class makes it about $55 million over. So they got to restructure some contracts or get rid of some guys.
Do you think they get rid of Tua and go back to the draft?
No.
No.
We got Tua wrapped
Tua
up.
had a really good year.
Yeah, he had a
The
good year.
difficult problem is, and you don't look at Waddle and those two guys, they have to have the ball thrown to him.
Yeah.
Guy's got to be able to be protected. You got to be able to throw the
That's
ball, and
That's
he
it.
was on his ass again. He's
And
lucky he
they've
didn't
got to
get
be
his bell
healthy.
rung.
Both Hill and
Then-
Waddle were nursing ankle injuries and probably would not have played if that was a regular season game. It didn't mean anything. So Miami's going to have some problems. I think Xavier Howard is probably out. I think they might use the tag on Christian Wilkins, but they're going to negotiate with Tua. They're going to extend him.
Guess what, though? Just came through. Guess what the Dolphins and the Patriots have in common this weekend?
They're both playing golf.
Yes, they are. There it is. Only the Patriots get better tee times because we've been there early.
You got there earlier. Exactly. All right. And then anything else on that Dolphins Chiefs games, I'd rather just forget about it.
That was a rough one. That's one to forget.
Yep.
That's one to forget.
That's one to forget. Let's move on to Pittsburgh at Buffalo. Another game. It was literally a sleeper.
It was a little bit of a sleeper. Yeah, I think it was interesting in moments where it felt like maybe Pittsburgh had a chance, but then
Pittsburgh never
In
had a
the
chance.
end,
Mason
you know,
Rudolph, come on.
and it was Pittsburgh.
yeah.
Thank you very much. That's from Johnny.
No tape.
That's from Tony the Tiger. All right. No, man, when you look at this game and everything else, did you? I don't know if you guys saw this where JJ Watt put on TJ Watt's jersey and said, "Do you think they'll notice?" He was actually thinking about going in and playing and whatnot. But that injury hurt them a little bit. Buffalo's been hungry. We talked about Buffalo getting healthy at the right time and everything else. Buffalo hosting things right up until we'll see what Houston can do. If Houston wins, they got to go to Buffalo.
Exactly. Yeah.
If Buffalo might travel, you know what? Let's see what happens. I think, though, Buffalo came with the right kind of game plan. It was a cold, rotten day.
And I'm just thinking, we're talking about that game, but that game was moved to Monday night.
Yeah,
It was the early game on
They
Sunday.
moved it there for the
Blizzard.
fans.
Yeah.
So the fans could get in and out of the stadium and everything else.
It was
I
unsafe.
got
for
a
the
couple
fans.
of
Well, they also needed to be able to shovel out that
Pittsburgh
snow.
fans, they wanted them to move it down to Pittsburgh, but
Like that was going to happen.
but yeah, right. But when I turned around and took a look at this one here and everything else, Buffalo had them at home. Buffalo did what they were supposed to do.
Mhm.
And now Buffalo's hosting KC instead of Buffalo going to
And
KC.
that's going to be an interesting
That's gonna
matchup
be a
when we
good
get
one.
to
Should
this
be good.
week's matchups. All right, Cowboys. Wow. And I heard
gotta go to the
today
toilet
Mike
right now.
McCarthy. Mike McCarthy is safe here was one of the reasons on McCarthy being safe, despite the fact that horrible loss to another game that was over. The score was closer than the game actually was. McCarthy is safe because Bill Belichick, being in Boston all these years, he doesn't want to be in a media town. He doesn't want to be in that media fire. So he politely told Dallas no. And he also told, I believe, not Philadelphia. Actually, he did tell Philadelphia no. I think they inquired.
Mhm.
So here's one for you, Floody. Bill, it has been announced today, barring any unforeseen something or other coming up, they just got to get the signatures on the lines, and Bill Belichick is headed to Atlanta, most likely.
Yeah,
I saw that. And, I talked to you about where Bill's boats are and everything else. He's only about an hour away from getting into West Palm Beach, where he keeps his yacht down there in Jupiter. Bill must see something in there with that team that he thinks he can turn around
Quickly.
Yes.
Yep.
And maybe he could bring in a little bit of his own staff and whatnot and see if there's got to be a defensive interest in that team, especially where you think you might be able to turn it a little bit and everything else. Good for Bill Belichick. No hard feelings whatsoever, just like when Brady went down to Tampa Bay. We were fortunate enough to have TB and BB for 24 plus years or whatnot. Few championships. It was nice. I don't.
Well, it was a run like nobody's ever
No,
seen.
yeah.
And maybe we may never see it again in our lives.
Well,
In
probably
today's
never will.
dynasty era with the salary cap and free agency, that's a tough thing to do. And for them to achieve that for so long was great. And I think it's a good move for Bill Belichick to go down to Atlanta.
I think it is too.
they got a
And you're not
solid
going to have
defense.
the media all over
No,
you. I mean, it is Bill Belichick, so the media is going to come
gonna
in
be
from other
around.
areas. But
He's got 8 or 9 games indoors.
Yeah.
So there's no weather
he's
there
not in
like
weather.
New England was.
It's going to get a good solid run game.
He's
The
might
quarterback situation might be then, but
he might be looking at that division because it was kind of weak.
Yeah. Yep.
Tampa Bay got hot at the right time and got in, but one team. New Orleans might be a little on the downside. Carolina, of course, is only a one way to go is up, but he might say, you know what, I go down here and win a couple divisions and maybe get in a couple playoffs and who knows what. You know,
can you imagine if Mike Vrabel took the job at Carolina and Belichick is in Atlanta and they would face each other twice a year?
You know what? I bet on the under all the time.
all under, baby.
Two defensive minds going at it. Back to the Dallas game against Green Bay. Dallas is at home.
Yeah.
Green Bay, pretty much, in my opinion, kind of squeaked into the playoffs. I mean, I know they were playing hot, but they had that horrible start. They play hot at the end of the year. Hats off to them at 9-8 to get into that game in the first place. But this was Dallas, who was undefeated at home. Would they lose one game in the last 2 seasons at home?
Yeah, something. Yeah, they had
Something ridiculous.
something
And they were a
ridiculous number.
scoring machine when they were at home. And they looked pathetic. I mean, they looked about as bad as the Cleveland Browns and the Kansas City Chiefs.
The good old
and
cow
the
patties. You
Miami
know what I
Dolphins,
mean? Not
excuse
the
me.
Cowboys. I can't even call them cowgirls. Cow patties, because that's what
Cow
they laid
patties.
out
That's
there.
exactly.
It was pretty ugly and everything else. I don't say this much because I think they put up like 32 points.
Right.
And so
garbage time.
well, whatever
It was
which
really
way,
16, and then the backups went in.
you
and
still
then
got 32 points, but you gave up 48. And that's where the problem was. The defense never came to show, never came to play. And hey, man, hats off to, because you know what's going on in there? Love is in the air. I should be singing now because love is in the air. Oh, guess you might hear that singing forever.
You listen to
Love is
kids
in the
playing.
air. Yep.
Well, and
The
I
run
just
game there.
I just broke the news to you tonight. Pete Prisco, he is picking this weekend when we get to those games. So I'll go ahead and say it now. Pete Prisco is actually picking Green Bay to beat San Francisco, and he has gone out and said that Tampa Bay will go into Detroit and beat the Lions.
liking those
I don't know if I
upsets. He's
agree with
liking-
him on
yeah,
that or
yeah,
not,
he's
but
liking those
we'll have to
upsets.
see. Speaking of the Lions had the Rams coming in there. It was the Matthew Stafford homecoming.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
Matthew Stafford, hey, even today, despite the fact that he's with the Rams, the Lions and the Rams had that trade, swapped quarterbacks. Matthew Stafford is a favorite son in Detroit.
Yeah.
They
love
loved
him.
that
They-
Super
yeah.
Bowl 2 years ago when Stafford got his ring.
Mhm.
Now, they didn't love him so much on Sunday
On
afternoon.
Sunday,
at
yeah.
Enough to
5
say
o'clock.
we're
Yeah.
playing, we're going on, and you're going back to Tinseltown.
But the Rams played them very tough, and Laporta's questionable. The defensive secondary for Detroit, little suspect. The Rams were able to move the ball up and down.
Oh,
the
they-
field.
yeah.
They just couldn't punch
They
it into
couldn't
the end
punch it
zone.
in, and then the red zone number. What it was? What 4 trips in the red zone, and it was all 4 field goals. Something
Yeah.
like that.
You're not going to win many playoff
Yeah,
games.
you're not gonna-
Kicking
you're not
field
gonna
goals,
win
you gotta
games with that.
Put up 6.
But arguably, I think it was the best game of the weekend.
We said it was going to be
It
the
was
best game,
It was the
and it
best
turned
game
out
of
a
the weekend.
1-point victory. But
Mhm.
Well, I think Goff and Stafford, I think they really wanted to go at each other.
Oh yeah,
I think they were chomping at the bit for that game, and it was a good game by both quarterbacks, a good game by both teams. But congratulations to Detroit, first playoff win in 32 years
yep.
Yep. Yeah,
And
that's right.
Stafford has never won a playoff game in Detroit.
in
Yeah,
Detroit.
Detroit.
That's right.
Yep.
All right.
So,
Back to Tinseltown.
well, Detroit gets another home game this week. So
Yep. Yep.
that's great.
Tampa
And
Bay
yeah.
coming in there, like you said,
Yeah.
but I think it's going to be a really good shootout too.
And we'll come back to wrap it up with the Philadelphia game at Tampa. What happened to Philadelphia? I mean,
That game was brutal. That
of course, you and I called it. We both
game-
said
yeah,
this was a Tampa Bay upset in the making.
Yeah.
I just didn't expect it to be a runaway.
it's so bad because you even heard Troy Aikman during the broadcast talk about, these guys interview these players, talk to these players all before the games, and he said he even felt like this Eagles team just was the heart
There's
wasn't
something
in
not
it. There's
there,
something
right?
off.
The problem was that Taylor Swift didn't show up. Oh, Ron Kelsey.
Ron
I
Kelsey.
actually like the big beef guy and everything. I was sorry to see
Jason.
him walking
Yeah.
off and
Well, he
tears in
hasn't
his
formally
eyes.
announced it.
And
He
that-
he
said,
did
when
a
I
little
get ready
bit,
to announce
yeah,
it
he
and
did a little,
formalize it, it will be done appropriately.
You
ready
tell
to
your teammates this is probably the last game I'm walking off
Well,
the field
yeah.
with. And he had tears in his eyes and everything else. That'll come soon, but the rest of the team just looked like crap.
Yeah.
They were all over the place. Kudos actually should probably go the other way instead of being Johnny negative over here and picking on the Eagles. Tampa Bay came to play.
Hey,
Tampa
Baker
Bay's
played.
defense was
Baker had
there,
a day.
made them look a little silly and funny, and
Mhm.
Baker was
And
throwing
Baker
the
had a
dime.
really
Baker was
nice
solid.
game.
Dimes
Baker was
going,
solid.
baby. So kudos and congratulations to Tampa Bay, who's going up to Detroit this week. No weather factor.
Mhm.
Watch out. Should
Yeah.
be a good game.
Should be a good game.
Yep.
Absolutely.
All right, well, let's move along. Anything else you guys have? Any information you want to share? Anything you've heard, tidbits from anything this week in regard to coaching changes? Anything else that you guys want to talk about before we move on to covering this week's 4 games? We got the divisional round this week.
I think if you wanted to go back to the coaching thing
Mhm.
and everything else, we said there were 2 games if those coaches lost. One was Philadelphia and one was Dallas. Nothing's been done. So
Jeffrey Lurie is going to meet with Nick Sirianni. I think it's sometime next week. And they're,
Okay.
but probably what I've heard they're going to talk about is possible coaching changes
At
with
the end.
coordinators and
Yeah,
position
I think the
coaches.
staffing is where I think Sirianni stays. I think some of the staff has to go.
I
We
think Matt
talked about
Patricia's out.
Matt Patricia, I believe, has to go. I don't think the players are responding to him. The defense never looked fired up.
nope.
Never looked
Nope,
fired up.
I probably agree with that one. The other game there with McCarthy, I'm a little shocked. Jerry usually likes to rattle up the nest, and a lot of times in that game, I was sitting there saying, Jerry Jones is on the phone to Bill Belichick right away, right off the bat, because I said it was the defensive side.
Mhm.
So maybe he's going to give McCarthy another shot, and maybe he gets a new defensive coordinator.
He
That's
has
the deal.
basically said, well, because Dan Quinn is probably going to get interviewed to
gonna
be a
get
head
it.
coach again.
I think he ends
Um,
up in Seattle. I think Dan Quinn may end up
That's-
in Seattle.
Very
that's a
well.
good
He
call,
was their
man.
defensive coordinator, so that's a good possibility for
Mhm.
him. In the coaching search, we know that Harbaugh is interviewed with the Chargers.
Right.
Mhm.
Atlanta looks like that's sewn up pretty much for
Yeah, I
Bill
think that one's
Belichick,
sewn up.
with it,
Yep.
unless something just comes up and blows up. Have you heard about Harbaugh negotiating with Michigan? And he wants a clause in that contract that he is not going to be able to be fired if there's any punishment coming down from the NCAA for the investigations into the supposed fractions of recruiting violations and the Spygate.
Wow.
I didn't hear any of that or any of that kind of talk, but that's good information to hear and know.
Well, it sounds like he wants to stay in Michigan if he can, but he just doesn't want to have them fire him.
Yeah, he wants
because
to,
of this NCAA.
He wants to pull the
security.
Pete Carroll. He wants to pull the Pete Carroll before the sanctions all show up. Let me head to the NFL and get out of this.
When he was
yeah, exactly. Yep. I mean, I always thought Harbaugh he's a great coach. He proved it in both, the NFL and college.
Yep.
And
college,
I think
twice actually.
And
he had Stanford rolling out.
He had Stanford rolling out before
he went over to you guys.
Yeah, to the Niners. So I think the college is where he kind of likes to be. I think that's probably his niche. And I think he'd rather stay at Michigan if he can. So
I think
why
so
not?
too.
You know, coming back as national
It's
championship. That's great to know, though, because do you guys think the NCAA will abide by his rules? Or
Michigan will cave in.
Michigan will sit there and say, you know what, this guy's been coming doing what we wanted. We couldn't get over the Ohio State hump.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't get into the Final Four, and then we didn't. Now we got a national championship.
Well, not only that, but I mean, you won a national championship this year, and he was suspended the first 3 games of the season, and then for 3 more, the final 3 games of their regular season.
That to me is the only thing that sits there and says, "Well, we won without you too, the coach."
True.
And the guy that stepped in did a great job. They won those 6 games.
Then again, the guy that stepped in was handpicked by Jim Harbaugh to be on the staff. So,
exactly.
Oh, what do you do there? Do you keep Jimbo or do you go to his protege? We've seen it before.
I think if Jim does decide to go to the NFL, I'd like to see him with the Chargers. I think he'd be a great coach for that team, especially with a good young quarterback in Herbert.
Justin Herbert. Yeah.
I think wherever Harbaugh lands, though, I think he's going to be all right.
He'll be fine.
Like you said, you made the point. He wants Michigan to guarantee that he don't get fired.
Yeah.
And if he goes to the NFL, I think whatever team he ends up landing in, he'll do well.
He'll do well. Yeah.
I want to talk one more thing in college football. There's a gentleman here this evening when I was setting up for the show, and when we were talking about the NCAA, the transfer portal, and the NIL deals. And it was funny because both of us mentioned it. How many of those Alabama kids, after Saban announced he was stepping down, he's retiring, how many of those kids jumped into the transfer portal? They couldn't wait to get out of Dodge.
Yeah, I couldn't wait to get out of that because that's an interesting move, especially with the NIL money and the
I understand. I think these kids, I think they should make something, but I don't agree with just here's a whole boatload of money.
Yeah.
You're too young to get that money. I mean, you're too young when you sign a multi-million-dollar contract in the National Football League. The security people in the NFL come down there and they have the rookie orientation and they tell you, be careful.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody that you thought was your friend when you were growing up, no. Okay, because you got a lot of this right now. And everybody coming out of the woodwork, people you didn't even know when you were in high school, now want to be your best buddy and hang out with you. And it doesn't take Ray Lewis. Look at what happened with him and the people that he was hanging out with. He almost got himself landed in jail for a murder charge. So
a murder charge that him and OJ both got acquitted for. Because if the glove don't fit, has to quit. I don't know. I agree they should get a little bit of money.
Yes,
it's way it's way out of proportion. It's way blown out, and I don't like this jumping ship and everything else. I'm kind of maybe old school. You sign a contract for 4 years to stay with a school, then only then can you get out of there if a situation like Saban happens and you can leave. But you can't jump all around like these guys are
all
doing.
the time. Yeah.
All of them.
I don't like the transfer portal, and everybody that I've spoken to, my former co-host on Dolphin Radio, John Bach, he hates that transfer portal.
No, I can't either.
He said it's going to ruin the game.
Yeah, it's free agency every year with it, and they do it. They start it before the season's even over.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Before their bowl game, they're like, "Well, I'm not going to play in the bowl game because I'm going to transfer.
I'm transferring out here."
You know who that gets? The fans.
Yeah.
Loyal fans that have been at Florida State, Georgia, Alabama, year after year, generation after generation, and everything else. So you support your local college because that's where your father went, or that's where your uncle went, or that's your team rah-rah.
Well,
And you
not
watch
to
these
mention that you're
kids-
giving the old heave ho to the boosters.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, not just the fans, the boosters.
It's crap. I tell you, it's crap.
I was actually shocked because I thought the quarterback for SC
Williams, Caleb Williams. Yeah.
I thought he would stay in college simply because he would make more money probably staying at SC next season rather than in the NFL.
Cliff Kingsbury looks to be possibly going to be named the new offensive coordinator in Chicago, who holds the number 1 pick in the draft. Caleb Williams going to the Bears, most likely, which then puts Justin Fields on the outside looking in.
Mm-hmm.
Where's he going to go? Who are they going to trade
Atlanta.
him to?
Yeah, you know what? And there's one guy less that I would like because the Patriots got the 3rd pick, and I like the young kid Marvin Harrison Jr. because we got no offense. I can get a quarterback later on down the line that can fill in and do what, you know.
That kid's going to be good wherever if he lands, especially if he doesn't fall and he falls past New
Who's
England.
got the number 2 pick? Arizona, I think.
I believe Arizona does have the number 2
So
pick.
if the Bears go quarterback,
I think Arizona grabs Harrison Jr. before you guys.
Well, then that could very well be.
Unless the Patriots can figure out a way to trade
the
him.
street drops and whatnot.
Yeah.
And you turn around, you take a look at that. I was kind of hoping those 2 things would happen. That, you know, Arizona takes the best defensive player or offensive lineman or whatnot. And then there's a decision for New England to make.
Yeah.
And, you know, Belichick's not pulling strings anymore. It's Gerard Mayo, who played for the Patriots, been with the organization for, I think, about 10 years now. He's been the linebacker coach. He's a player's coach. They all love him. They all talk highly of him. You might see a different type of change in attitude up there. He got stuff rubbed off from Belichick, but they say he's a little more lenient and quieter.
Players coach.
Yeah,
yes.
he's more of a player's
You know what I
coach.
mean?
Belichick was old school in the way he was a
very-
disciplinarian,
yeah.
kind of like the old, Shula and Chuck Knoll and Chuck Knox and those guys.
They came from Bill Parcells, who was also way back in
major disciplinarian,
So,
Bill Parcells.
You know, we'll see what happens on the come on the draft. And New England has always had tendency of turning around, and they got that 3rd pick, so they trade it and get 2 more first rounds and 2 second rounds or whatever to somebody that seems to need something. You know,
I think this offseason, I really think we're going to see an awful lot of wheeling and dealing from all of the teams trying to shuffle for draft position. You're going to see a lot of moves in free agency.
you mentioned Caleb Williams. I don't think he's going to be a very good NFL quarterback. That's just my opinion. Especially, you know, he surprised everybody under Lincoln Riley 2 years ago. Won the Heisman and everything else. This year they had a little more tape on him, a little more stuff on him. He didn't look such a superstar. Maybe because he was getting paid good money. Maybe because he's saving himself for the NFL. Maybe because I don't want to get hurt.
Yeah,
it's coming out early.
Yeah,
but I don't know if he reads defenses as well as everybody thought he did. He caught a lot of people off guard that first year. We'll see. Let's see what the Bears will turn around and do. And then if you, like you said, if he's in, who's out?
Well, obviously Justin Fields.
And who needs a quarterback? Right. And then he last Atlanta.
Needs a QB.
He's right. So
that's a very big possibility.
So
maybe Atlanta jumps into the ring, and we've got a 3 or 4
and then
way
maybe there's
trade.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go. So I think there's going to be a lot of stuff happening up on front.
And one last thing, I can't remember the player's name for the life of me, and I should because I'm a Miami Hurricanes fan. Also, the Miami Hurricanes have a kid who's been in so many different teams in the NCAA. He has decided he's going to forego the draft so he can come back for 1 more year with the Hurricanes. This will be his 9th year playing NCAA football.
He's on the Jambalushia.
Yeah, I know, right? Holy smokes.
Yeah, wow. I didn't know that.
Wow, yeah.
Did not know
He's a
that.
receiver, and his name it escapes me. I can't. I just saw the article today.
What's he, almost 30?
I know.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. What the hell is that? I'm going down to play for the Dolphins.
He's probably not getting drafted, so.
There's got to be something in the water.
I don't even think he caught
Florida.
13 passes all season long. So,
wow.
but yeah, this will be his 9th year
Wow.
playing college football.
Well, holy smokes.
So
I'm
All
not
right.
far off if you went
Yeah,
into college at
my
18.
goodness, holy
I
smokes.
know, 27.
is 27 years old. And that right there, bell signifies that
The
the
Golden
Golden Knights
Knights.
have just scored a goal. What is the score?
Woo,
1-0.
1-0. They're
1-0.
playing the
All
Red
right.
Hot Rangers
Yeah.
from New York. They're a good hockey team. It's actually a really good game and be a good win for the
Yeah,
Knights.
hopefully, yeah.
Yeah.
Would be. All right, so let's go ahead. We'll move on now. Roman, we're going to move on to this week's game. We'll throw that ticker up. We're going to start out with Houston, surprisingly going to the divisional round, but now they got the juggernaut.
Yeah.
Now you got to go into Baltimore. It's going to be cold. You're not in the dome. What they don't play in a dome in Houston, do they?
Yes, they do.
Is it a dome?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, sir. There was no weather last week, and they dismantled Cleveland. This is a little different. Like you said, these two teams already played this year, and Baltimore handled them. The one thing that I look at when I see this round here is the two teams, San Fran, the number one seed, and Baltimore, the number one seed, always seem to, that extra week, they always seem to shellac somebody. I take everything back that I know Houston did a great job. They looked great this year. They put it together. They won a playoff game. This is a huge challenge. And you know what? I take nothing away from CJ Stroud,
Or D'Amico Ryan.
and they're running backs, and they're playing well, and their defense looks decent. But you're dealing with a different animal now. You got to go into their den. It's like going to the Tigers den or whatever, Bears den. I think, though, when you look at this game and everything else, the key factor again will be Lamar Jackson, because he always does all the time in the playoffs. Does Houston get in there and snag him? I don't know if this is the game, but
well, I think if the Houston defense, here's my take on this. If Houston's defense, because I think Houston's offense is going to score. I know the Baltimore defense is tough, but CJ Stroud, I think he's going to continue. He's got a lot of confidence.
Yeah, he's got a lot.
He just set records last week for a rookie quarterback in the playoffs. I think Houston's going to score. I think if Houston can go in there with a defensive game plan to contain Lamar Jackson, keep him between the tackles, don't let him get outside and get those big runs to convert those third downs, third and long, okay, and keep those chains moving. If you can get some pressure in there on him, they've got the defensive backs that could shut down the Baltimore passing attack.
Well, it's a double-edged sword there with the Baltimore passing. Every time you shut them down, you turn around, you're covering your guy, you're up in him, and here comes Lamar Jackson with the ball running past you. So, I mean, they got the dual offensive type of deal where it's actually tried, because their running game isn't all that bad, too. They got a couple of beasts with Edwards over there for
Gus
Baltimore,
Edwards.
Gus Edwards, and a couple of the beasts that will pound the bill.
They just brought up Dalvin Cook.
There's a little,
squad, right?
So,
Cook, so.
And Lamar with his legs and everything else. I mean, I'm hoping to see a really good game, and I would love to see Houston pull the upset. You're a 9-10 point dog, which the books are saying, they should win by 10 points.
Sure.
Last time they were, I think it was like 26-10. Houston only amounted 10 points, and the weather was nice then. This is now winter fridge and everything else.
Yeah, this is the frozen tundra.
Sitting at home for 2 weeks. They're well rested. They got all their guys doing all sorts of work, so they should. Those little nagging injuries are probably healthy now, and everything else. We'll see how bitter cold it can get up there. You get lucky, it might be in the 40s. You know what I mean?
Possibly.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the weather forecast.
I haven't either. So
it is Baltimore. I just think all across, up and down that roster, Baltimore obviously better. We looked at that Houston roster early in the season. I didn't expect Houston to win 4 games.
Absolutely.
Seriously.
Yeah.
They overachieved. I got to go Baltimore in this game. I say Baltimore 28-17.
That's right on the number.
It's close to the spread. I'm going to give the Houston team a little more credit. I think they cover the spread. I still like Baltimore. I think Baltimore ends up winning this, but I'm going to take Baltimore 24-20.
That's I like that. That's a pretty good one. I'm right in the ballpark. I got 27-20. Baltimore.
All right, that brings us up to your game. Your 49ers are still in it. He's the only one on the panel with his team still in this tournament. Green Bay at San Francisco. San Francisco a 9.5 point favorite as well. Number 1 seed in the NFC. They've had the chance to rest for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you're talking about these two teams, Baltimore and San Francisco. They seem to be the only teams, like you said, that can get that rest and come out and just pound you. A lot of other teams, they get that extra rest and they come out flat.
They come out flat.
Not these two teams, Baltimore and San Francisco. Pete Prisco, though, I told you, Pete Prisco thinks Green Bay's going to go in there and shock them. That would shock the world.
Oh,
that'd be
a huge.
Let me see again. Love is in the air. I look at this game here. Green Bay achieved a really good deal by getting in the playoffs. They went down and kicked the snot out of Dallas. I don't care which way you want to look at it. Now they got to go on the road again. Another difficult task, playing a team that's been off for 2 weeks, well rested. Their injuries are coming along. McCaffrey's supposed to be ready to go. Debo's supposed to be ready to go. The defense looks like it's shining and everything else. On this one here, I gives Green Bay, the running back is running well, quarterback's playing well, and everything else. Green Bay was the youngest team ever to make playoffs. I don't know if you guys knew that. Youngest team ever for an average team. And second, between these two teams, they have met the most in the playoffs. San Fran and Green Bay have met the most in the modern day playoffs of the Super Bowl and everything else. I just think San Fran might have a little, Purdy's little niches in his injuries. I just think they're a little bit too strong for this team. And I'm going to take San Fran. I think they do cover the spread. And I got a 34-17.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What is your take on this here, Mr. San Francisco?
Listen, I love Green Bay. I think they have a great team. I just think the pass rush for the 49ers is going to be too great for Jordan Love to overcome. The receivers will have their shots because of the secondary the Niners have is not the greatest.
Right.
They rely a lot on that pass rush. And I think the pass rush will get there. I think the run game of the Niners will keep the Green Bay Packers offense off the field. I'm going to take them in a big win. I think I'm going to take them 30-20. Niners
right on the number there. Yep.
I have to take San Francisco in this game myself, just because they were one of the teams I've talked about all year. As we talked about how good the Eagles were at 10-1, but something was off, right? The 49ers were just clicking. They were a machine. Then they hit that 3-game losing streak, and then they pretty much righted the ship and just started crushing everybody. You lose to Baltimore.
Yeah.
That kind of sucked.
Yeah.
But I think they take that bitter pill. I think they've swallowed it. I think they're focused. I think they're going to run the ball. I think they're going to let Purdy manage the game. You don't have to have Purdy win this game.
No.
Okay. No. You give that ball, you hand that rock off to a guy by the name of Christian McCaffrey. You run that clock down. You keep the ball out of Jordan Love's hands. And when he is in the game, that defensive front and those linebackers, those edge rushers, just get after it.
They got two pretty other good saw guys, like I mentioned, Debo and
another score.
And Kittle is very healthy too.
Kittle's
Kittle's a huge release valve, and he's running with a little
dump off pass that Purdy can handle, and Debo Samuel right out. So I'm going to take San Francisco, and again, I'm going big on this. Floody, you said 34-17, and I agree with you, 34-17.
Yeah, I think the only thing that can get in the Niners' way is the Niners themselves with Shanahan and trying to do too much. Too much with rather than run the ball, throwing them, trying to get too cute. And that's the only thing that worries me with Kyle Shanahan's offense. Yeah.
All right, that will bring us to another NFC game. Tampa Bay, who pretty much manhandled the Eagles going into Detroit. Now, Detroit had a very, very tight game against the Rams. We discussed that. The Rams just could not punch it into the end zone. Detroit has a little bit of a problem in that defensive secondary. That, look, if Baker Mayfield keeps playing the way he's been playing, he could make this an interesting game. Detroit at home, favored by 6.5. Is Detroit now happy that they finally got the playoff monkey off their back and they're going to let down a little, or Dan Campbell going to keep them rocking and rolling? Jesse?
I think Dan Campbell keeps this game going, and I know everybody talks about the Tampa Bay defense and how they're really tough against the run. I just think with this two-headed monster that Detroit has with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, I think they control the clock, and I think those those little passes, they get Gibbs going in the open field. I think that's going to hurt them. I think they blow out the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I think so.
I'm going to take Tampa Bay 35-17.
Good call, brother. I'm about one touchdown away from you on that. I'm going to agree. The monkey is off the back, but Campbell, I like that coach. He's going to have them very ready to go and intense.
Yes,
at
absolutely.
home, no weather,
Hey, they
no
scored.
nothing.
Yeah.
3-0 there on a roll. No weather factor, no nothing. Tampa Bay, you did a great job. You didn't impress me the last week of the year when you had to get in the playoffs on the road, scored 9 points at Carolina, everything else. I think Detroit handles this game. I got it. They cover the spread too, but I got it 28-20. And I'm about a touchdown. Maybe I get an extra touchdown there. But I think Detroit covers the game. And I think Detroit pretty much handles this game. It could be 28-13. And there's the other little but it's not a backdoor cover. I think Detroit wins it outright.
Yeah, I have to agree. I like Detroit in this game. I'm also a big Dan Campbell fan. As I remember when he was our tight ends coach in Miami, he became the interim coach when we got rid of Sleepy Joe Philbin. And I really thought he should have gotten a shot with Miami to be a head coach. And of course, they decided to go with Adam Headgase. So I like Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell reminds me, he's this coach that if it were allowed by the rules and he needed to suit up, he would suit up and go play.
Absolutely. You'd be in uniform on the sideline there with the headset on.
Yeah. And I mean, you look at him. I mean, this guy is he's bulked up. He spent some time in that weight room. I like Detroit. I like Dan Campbell. I think he's going to have this team ready to play. They're going to cover that spread. You said 35-17. Before you said that, I had already written down 31-17.
Wow.
I love Detroit. And at this point in time, I think I got about 3 teams that I'm kind of following. Actually, 2. I'm down to 2 teams I'm following for the Super Bowl this year that I'd like to see win it. If it's not San Francisco, I'd like to see the Lions actually finally get to the Super Bowl because they're one of 4 teams that have never even played in the Super Bowl.
Got to win 2 more games.
2 more games. So I like Detroit, 31-17. That brings us to they're calling for a lot of nasty weather again in Buffalo. Buffalo's just a nasty town. It really is. Why anybody would want to live there?
I don't know. Out to our buddy Triple B. He lives here now. Smart guy. He moved on. I look at this game. Are they going to move it again because of the fans, safety, and everything else? If not, I like Buffalo. They're happy to be at home. They're a red-hot team. Not only did they turn around and win the game down at Fishville down there in Miami, but they ended up getting the number 2 seed, and they're hosting another game at home where there's nothing to do in Buffalo but go bowling and eat chicken wings and watch the Buffalo Bills.
Have you ever had a Salen's?
Who?
Salen's hot dogs.
Salen's hot dogs. It's probably behind the Fenway Frank that's number 1 out there, but I'll tell you that. They
actually rivaled the Nathan's Famous.
No kidding.
They're good. I like Nathan's a little better, but the Salen's are close, and they born and raised right there in Buffalo.
Hey, Roman, get me some mustard for this hot dog over here. All right. I think KC goes in there. KC hasn't looked like too much all year long. Their defense is decent. They shut Dolphins down last week. Weather permitting, I think it might be a little bit more wide open. Mahomes won't be happy. He'll be crying on the sidelines.
Always.
Josh Allen will be trying to run over some guys. Entertaining game, but I like Buffalo to win it and cover, and I like a little bit of a high score, 31-21, Buffalo Bills.
And Buffalo is favored by 3 in this game for those that want to follow along on the spread. Jesse, this game is intriguing because Buffalo has never been able to get past the Chiefs
Yes.
in the playoffs.
In the
Now,
playoffs.
those games were over in Arrowhead,
Mhm.
but the Chiefs are used to this cold weather. Probably not as nasty as it's going to
It's
be
gonna
there
be.
in Buffalo on Sunday.
I mean, the field was all. It looked all
field
good
was
for
fine.
Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
You know what I
and
mean?
they cleared the stands out
Yeah.
too. So they were paying the fans $20 an hour. They're calling for another big winter storm though before this game, so they might have to do it again. What do you give us your thoughts on this game?
I think this one is perfectly set up. Buffalo is playing good football right now. Josh Allen looks really good. I know they've got some injury concerns on the offensive side there in Buffalo, but I think they're looking pretty good. You know, it's I like the tight ends that Buffalo brings. It's a matchup nightmare, and I think it's going to be another matchup nightmare for Kansas City.
I agree.
I really do. I think Buffalo goes in there. I think Patrick Mahomes cries his eyes out. I think I'm gonna take the Bills. I'm gonna go 24-20.
All right,
Covers the spread though.
Covers the spread.
Covers the spread.
I
All
got
right.
just another touchdown.
Oh, by the way, and I just wanted to mention, since you mentioned our friend Brian, the Buffalo Bills fan, BBB, I tallied his numbers on the sheet here as well. He went 4-2 in his picks last week as well.
Kidding. Oh, nice.
So he had Houston, so he won that one. He had the Chiefs, he had the Bills, he had the Cowboys, so he lost that one. Then he had the Lions, and he took the Eagles. So if he'd have taken Tampa Bay, he would have been 5-1. He would have bested all of them.
Yeah, exactly.
If the
Hats off
nuts
to
were
BBB.
candy and nuts, what a Merry Christmases would be.
All right, so back to this Kansas City Buffalo game. Brian, you're gonna hate me. I say Buffalo. I agree. Buffalo, they played great at the end of the season. Their last 9-10 weeks, whatever, were lights out. I mean, a lot of people said stick a fork in them. They're done.
Oh, yeah.
They're not even going to make the playoffs. They said, hey, wait a minute, not so fast. They not only made the playoffs, they came in there, they beat up a wounded Miami team, wins the division. They're hosting playoff games. They're hosting this one. They're only favored by 3, though. So that tells me that Vegas isn't quite sold on Buffalo. This is the Kansas City Chiefs. This is the defending Super Bowl champions. They haven't played great all year. They are missing a guy by the name of Tyreek Hill. There's no doubt about that. They don't really have the receiver core, but I think Mahomes, he's going to do a lot of that. But I think he's going to do just enough of that to get the officials' attention. I think you're going to see that young running back, his name Pacheco.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see him run wild against that Buffalo defense, and you're going to get just enough receptions from Mahomes to Travis Kelce to make the difference. Those 3 guys on that offense, and Ladarius Toney, some of the other guys, they'll probably step up and they're going to make some plays. But Kansas City's the defending Super Bowl champions. I think Vegas is giving them the respect they deserve. I think there's a little bit more to that. I'm picking Kansas City in the upset.
Taking the upset.
Triple B and Buffalo Mafia out there. It's Brad Michaels. Remember that. All right. You come down to 8100, get a cold beer with your buddy Floody. And yes, we pick Buffalo, but it's Brad Michaels. Remember that Buffalo Mafia.
I'll be wearing a full ghillie suit next week for the show.
Well, it should be entertaining.
It'll be
It's going to be very entertaining. I'm going with the Chiefs 21-17 in that game.
Oh wow. Okay.
Okay.
So, and by the way, you mentioned that the Green Bay Packers are the youngest team in the National Football League. The Chiefs defense is the youngest defense.
Oh wow, I did not know
in
that one.
the league. Yes. And it was the defense, Kansas City's defense, that kept them in games when the offense was a little sluggish.
I say watching them all year long that their defense was solid all
Especially
the way through
when
and
they got
everything
Chris
else.
Jones back in there. He definitely took right off.
Yeah, a beast. Their problem is scoring right now, and I think the elements are about the same, like you say, and everything else. But we watched Kansas City lose a few games that they didn't, and we watched Buffalo barely start to make a run at the playoffs. The only thing is, the hot stick is the hot stick. You know what I mean? And there was a hot buffalo chicken wings that are cooking on up there, man. Those people will be crazy again.
It's going to be fun to watch, but Bills Mafia will be He lights out.
Yeah.
I know it is week 11, Buffalo, they give him like a 5% chance to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
In week 11, and
And then
now,
they took off.
Here they're in the divisional games and looking to see if they can win this one and then turn around and hope Houston pulls the upset, and they're hosting the AFC Championship game in Buffalo. That could be crazy.
As long as Josh Allen doesn't try to do too much with
Right.
forcing the ball, because this is where he gets himself in trouble, is where he tries to force a lot of plays.
A KC defense might throw him a couple of deals, but I think Buffalo just getting that game at home, and we talked about monkeys a few times.
They got to get the Kansas City monkey off their back.
Yes, and I think because they're at home, I think they will.
We'll find out. Now it's going to be fun because
I'm sorry, but the big question is
shoot.
Do they line up on sides this time?
We're talking about that. Do you realize? I mean, this was the first year. I'm glad you mentioned that because I was talking to this gentleman here tonight before the show. We were talking about that, and he said he doesn't like the fact that Mahomes cries, but he doesn't like Josh Allen either. But he said, they wanted to whine and complain about losing that game because the guy lined up offside. He was offside. Okay. And I said, but I do understand what the Chiefs were saying. When Reed came out the next day and he said, look, he said he might have been offsides. That happens. It's a little tough sometimes to look down that line and make sure he was like an
wasn't even close.
It wasn't really. He was about a half a foot. Okay. Across there. But Reed was right. Usually the official, he'll stand there and he'll go, hey, back it up a little bit. They do that out of a courtesy because it is a little difficult sometimes. So it's something that has not been called. You saw it a lot more this year. Yeah. I think that was the big game where it brought way more attention to it. Just because they kind of waited till the touchdown and then they went.
I think the big thing about it was the refs were helping him out, and he kept pushing the boundary. Yeah. And finally, they were just, okay, fine. You want to do it? They threw the flag on him. And it just so happened to be that play. But that play, as soon as they hiked it, they threw the flag. So it wasn't like it came out, 10 minutes after the play was over.
You know what? And we don't know. It was a national TV game, but the ref might have told them 2 or 3 or 4 plays.
One more time, I'm going to call.
You know what I mean? Maybe. So, I mean, it was blatant obvious. Even Stevie Wonder could see that. All right.
Well, and of course, that was probably the beginning of the breakdown of Mahomes' helmet because of throwing it so many times over the sidelines. Did you see that play where his helmet just went?
Yeah. Well, because it was so cold and frigid, and it was a direct hit right on there. It was probably weak and whatnot. It was awesome. It was pretty cool.
It was the only highlight the Dolphins.
It was cool. Yeah, it was cool. It was cool to watch.
He had no clue, but the player got a hole in his head.
Yeah. Well, he has a hole in his head anyway. All right, so let's go on. We've got 8 minutes here or thereabouts. So we'll come back. Since I picked Kansas City, we got that third matchup possibility here. But I want you to think about something. If Houston was to beat Baltimore and KC did beat Buffalo, KC is going to host their 6th AFC championship game in a row. All right, let's go on to what you guys have picked, and we'll go on as if Buffalo, because I got outnumbered on the Buffalo pick. So we'll start with Detroit in the NFC championship game on the road in San Francisco. And I'll let you start off.
Especially in San Fran, I'll take the Niners all day long. Just so they're out of that dome. That's not Detroit's game.
You'd think this guy was a 49er.
Yeah, you would think. I'm a homer base there.
If that is the way the scenario goes down, then I am definitely with you with San Fran. But if Green Bay pulls the upset and Detroit wins, the game is in Detroit. And it's the Norris division of the NFC North. And that Norris is hockey. And they played each other already
division
twice.
Teams have already played each other twice. That's going to be a grudge match. That would be fun to watch.
I see Detroit going to San Fran.
I do too. Yeah. And I have the same opinion. I love Detroit, and they got a chance. I think whatever the point spread in that, I think it's probably going to be maybe 3.5, 4 points, something like that. It's going to be close. I think Detroit will cover. I think that game will probably come down to like a 21-18 game.
Oh yeah,
it's going to be weird.
Are you calling the spread for that one for San Fran and Detroit at San Fran?
Yeah. I'm saying San Fran probably by 3.5.
I was thinking a little bit higher, especially, what you want to see is what happens. Too, because if Detroit turns around and blows somebody out, that will bring it down closer. If San Fran has, a tight game. If
Tampa
Tampa
played them
blows them
close.
out and Tampa Bay plays them close, I think you might see around a 6.5, 7.5, right there where the old touchdown spread is. Just so the bookmakers, they know, they're no idiots. They know where to put that spread most of the time.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I would turn around probably and say, like last week, use an example. Cowboys, Philadelphia, 100 people in each room. You tell them what's going on and everything else. And
85%
everything
of
is
them would have been picking the Cowboys and the Eagles.
absolutely. So, I mean, that's kind of how the books like to look at it a little bit
Mhm.
and everything else. They don't want you to just turn around and say, oh, well, San Fran's only 3-point favorite. We'll jump all of San Fran, and the books might take a beating. But if they turn around, they entice you a little bit with 6.5, 7.5. Oh, man, Detroit's playing well, man. I'll take the 7.5.
But let's figure if San Francisco wins, as we've all said, you and I have 31-17 and 34-17. Floody, you were a little closer, I think, on that game.
Okay.
But you still had them covering, right? San Fran.
Which one?
No,
San Fran and
he's got
Green
them-
Bay?
He's got them.
I got them. That's my biggest.
Okay. 34-17.
blowout.
Okay.
34,
So we got them
17.
all. We got San Francisco, all three of us, in a blowout.
Yes.
We have Detroit in a blowout. 31-17 was my pick.
Yeah.
So if
Mine was 28-20, so they cover.
so, you're a little closer.
Yeah.
So, but I think if they cover it in a larger number, both teams have pretty much like a blowout.
Mhm.
I think that's when you're going to see probably a 3.5 point, because Vegas is going to go, wait a minute, this is two juggernauts. These are two
I
heavyweights.
could see that.
I could too, but the other thing that a lot of times home field advantage is always worth 3 points.
Always, yeah.
So you're telling me San Fran's only a 0.5 point?
Oh, you got to look at, hey, Buffalo's only favored by 3. They're only getting the home field advantage.
Yeah,
Against KC. So-
that's a very good point. But
And it is the NFC Championship game, and Detroit's a good team.
Yeah.
They're a little
I'm
banged
not
up.
taking nothing against Detroit.
But
And
I
it wouldn't
will go
surprise
with
me
San
if they put some
Francisco in that
pressure
game.
on. If it comes down to those two teams, it would not surprise me if they put a little pressure on Purdy and he chokes it up a little bit and whatnot, throws a couple of interceptions or whatnot.
Sure.
And you might see Detroit in the Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
But I think I think just the way that we see everybody playing right now, the Lions are good. If they get to this game, it's San Francisco. With San Francisco, like I said, they've been that juggernaut really all year long. Other than that 3-game hiccup,
Mhm.
and there were reasons for that. The offensive line had some injuries. You were missing a couple of guys on the defense. You guys got healthy, boom, and you just run away with it. So I would take San Francisco in that matchup as well, which would bring us to the Buffalo Bills having to go play the Baltimore Ravens.
If that
Almost said
scenario
Colts.
holds true, if 1 and 2 end up winning and
Yeah.
everything else, that'll be a
That'd be
really
interesting.
exciting game.
I think I would-
Interesting.
I think I would still have to take Baltimore.
I'd have to take Baltimore. I just think Baltimore, and the Bills are physical.
Mhm.
I've seen these guys up close. They're huge. I just think Baltimore is a little more in your face, smash mouth football. And the Bills, they're a little smash mouth, but they also have a little bit of that finesse.
in there. I get them.
Let me ask you guys a question, because somebody said to me, and I didn't see it. The Super Bowl is here in beautiful Las Vegas.
Mhm.
They come out every year with the colors of what the Super Bowl is
yeah.
going to be.
They went the red and purple.
And
this
it was
year.
red.
All right,
and
that,
purple,
and they are the number 1 seeds. They are the favorites that have been there. They're the teams that we talked about. San Fran would love to get a shot back at them being
Mhm.
just
the lights went out?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I won't say go back that far. I'll go back a couple of weeks ago on Monday Night
Yeah,
Football
on the Monday
when
night
they
game.
got their asses handed to them on national TV. Baltimore went in there and whooped their ass. That was the game where Purdy threw like 4 touchdowns, 3 in the first half or something. He looked
threw a lot of picks.
tough.
He did.
That would be a game that Detroit would have to pull with them to try and beat them to win that game. But the Super Bowl colors and everything else,
Well,
the
if
two number
I
one
saw that. It
seeds.
was very
I
interesting. And it is
Fury.
purple and
it-
red. So.
And the bottom color has always been the winner.
Was it red?
No, it's purple.
Whoa.
Every year, it's always the bottom color.
Well, I would say if we come into a Buffalo Baltimore AFC Championship game, that's a game you'll see Baltimore favored by 7.5.
Yeah, I can agree with that one.
I think that would be the starting line,
sit
maybe
a
6.5.
Oh, I'm thinking it depends. It's going to depend on how they look.
They look
How they
this
look
week,
in their game.
and weather there, the weather is going to be a factor there. Weather in Detroit, there is no factor. Pretty much San Fran, you might get some rain
Some
or
rain
something,
there.
but I don't think you see the the stuff that you see at the other places. The Lions, like we said, they're indoors. The Bills are outside. Niners, Ravens are outside. So, weather has a lot to do with it, and it helps, especially when you have home field advantage.
Mm-hmm.
See what Baltimore does with Houston, and see if the Bills give Casey a little bit of a butt whooping. You might see it a little lower. They might want to get a little of that Buffalo Mafia money in there.
Possibly. All right, gentlemen. You guys got anything? Any other comments?
No.
Anything you want to bring up? Okay.
Great job by Roman, the guy.
Roman does a great job for us.
Thank
But
you.
that'll do it for us this week on the latest edition of First and Mad right here at Mad Maddie's Casino in Las Vegas. Make sure you guys want to come down and sit out here and watch a show live. Come on down. You can even ask a question of the panelists. So come on down, see us. Otherwise, we will see you next week right here at Mad Maddie's for another edition of First and Mad.
Move rooms as such. Some would say that boy right there is touch. Do we maintain? Nah, not too much. Situation getting too hard to clutch. Yep, it feels like I fall and it can't get up. I gotta hold my head, man, I can't give up. I realize in life this.